Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'd like to take a closer look at what made our brains double in size around 2 million years ago. Everyone knows that our brains nearly doubled in size, but no one knows or has a very good explanation. And a lot of people blame it on something like an increase in calories. Now, what would happen if we had an increase in calories? Well, calories are part of the macronutrients, and usually if we increase macronutrients, there's a good chance we might increase micronutrients at the same time. So was it the macronutrients, the calories, or the micronutrients? No one really knows, and no one has a really good explanation. However, if we're going to blame it on one thing that came along that made this happen, I always thought that coconuts made more sense to me than anything else, because most of the fat in coconuts and mother's milk is lauric acid. So that's what I would say if there was something to point at. But I was thinking of this just the other day, and a very obvious answer came to me that I've never heard anyone else say, and I'm not saying no one has said it. Maybe there is someone who's out there saying this, but it only made sense to me when you just think about, well, what would have happened? What should have happened if before we started cooking our food and we fell from nature and we had all of our senses? Well, we know what would have happened. There's a symbiotic relationship with the food we eat. And we would have known to take the best of all the foods and plant those seeds right in the right places. We would have known that. We'd have taught that to our children. It would have taken very many generations to make sure that everyone growing up knew what to do for at least 7 more generations. At least. And what would have happened, just think about it. Once we got smarter and smarter, once we took care of the food we need better, we kept making our food better, kind of like we do with heirloom foods right now, where you pick the choices of the seeds. Imagine if you go out into nature, you find an apple orchard. It's all one variety of apples, and you go in there, and all your people are eating off these trees for a long time. But you realize, man, there's one tree and there's better than all the rest, or there's 5 trees that are better than all the rest. So you take only those seeds, and you start up a whole different orchard outside, separate of that, and now you got a whole nother orchard. And then what happens generations down the road? Once your children's children are doing the same thing, they look at the plant, that next little group, and they take the best of those seeds and they start another place. And that's what we'd be doing. All of our food, we keep getting better and better and better, because we knew that's what our existence depended on. And this is how I think our brains just gradually kept getting better and better, because our food kept getting better and better and better and better. Doesn't that make sense? It's not so much the extra macronutrients, it's the micronutrients. We would be perfecting our food and just making it better and better, because that food wanted to be the best that it could be too. So when we did our job and made our food the best that it could be, it in turn would make us the best that we could be. But then our brains kept getting bigger and bigger, and we can throw that piece of the puzzle out. I said this before, that I've identified 11 main events that have drastically changed the fate of mankind. We can throw the first main event out because it's really controversial and just say there's only 10 main events and that's it. But that first main event is our brain getting bigger. Now, what caused it? We can only speculate. Does it really matter? What does, if you're going to blame a subsequent event as the reason why it happened and then make an excuse for a mistake, and that's what we're doing. And remember, the status quo has to keep things the way they are for the status quo to be the status quo. So they're going to influence what we know. They're going to put propaganda out there, making sure we don't understand what is the very first mistake we made. That's why you can't find that answer in so many places. You get nonsensical answers to explain what the fall of mankind is, and it's amazing people will defend it. When you point out the first answer is garbage, then they come up with another that's so ambiguous. It's like, well, do you actually believe that? What does that even say? It doesn't say anything. Once again, there are certain things certain people don't want us to know. And one of them is, what's the biggest mistake we made? What is the fall of mankind? That's what we need to understand. So, this is why every video I do focuses on getting reconnected, going upstream so we can change our mentality, because that's why we suffer so much as a species. We are not born with a dark side to our behavior. We're not born as sin. We've been told lies as part of our belief system so that we won't realize there's something we can do. They're taking away our responsibility when you're saying, oh, you're just born that way, there's nothing you can do, accept it. And And there's so many other things that fit in that camp. I did a video series and I started a playlist, and I need to update that big time, but I've done so many videos in the last 5 months, I've fallen behind on updating my playlist. But if you look at my belief system playlist, I pointed out quite a few of our beliefs that are taking away our responsibility. We have to understand that any belief that takes away our responsibility is something we have to look at in a little more detail. Otherwise, we might not realize how important changing what we do really is. So this is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. When we take better care of our environment, we become better. The problem is that once we do get better, we become too clever for our own good. We're able to master things we'd never mastered before. And that's the other 10 events I'm talking about. So the first main event is when our brains nearly doubled in size, or gradually grew. Who knows exactly how it happened, right? I wasn't there. But then that allowed us to master 5 things we never mastered before. And then with all new knowledge comes the potential for evil whenever we apply it to things we need. Those are the 5 mistakes, 5 bad applications. The first is the fall of mankind. We took the first thing we mastered that made us the king of the jungle, fire, applied it to our food, destroyed the coherent sunlight energy that we store in the nucleus of our cells that makes us feel one with everything. That's a contributing factor to the dark side of our behavior. And now the food we're eating has the wrong bowel transit time. We have a serpent inside our body. And the combination of those 2 things creates a dark side of our behavior and changes our whole mentality. And we'll never solve any of our problems, ever, unless we change our mentality. And there's only one way to change our mentality. That's to get reconnected. That's why we have to understand that we always have to go upstream and get reconnected, correct the fall of mankind, and then what we can do is we can reverse what we've got now. Because what do we have now? Well, we're not taking care of our food anymore. Our food is no longer the best that it can be. In fact, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And look at us, we're getting worse and worse and worse. Look at where we're going. Long ago, we knew to make our food better and better so it'd make us better and better. We lost that simple concept. That's what we need to gain back. We need to understand that our food is our salvation. We have to make our food the best that it can be. We need to make it plentiful. There's an abundance on this planet. We got to stop falling for these lies that have convinced us in scarcity. All based on having the wrong mentality to begin with, because we're disconnected. That's why it's so crucial to address the fall of mankind. That's why it's so crucial to understand how important it is to correct the fall of mankind and stop believing in ridiculous excuses that it has to do with something about eating from the tree of knowledge, good and evil, and our free will. That doesn't answer anything. It's just confusing. And if you believe it, it's just that you have so many references. No, everybody tells me this. And if there's an objection to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, well, no, it's just free will. No, come on. It doesn't make any sense. Remember, everything we need can be used against us, and that's what the people who rule the world have done. They've taken religion and spirituality and created a dark side to it. Everything has the potential to have a dark side to it when it's poisoned. Our food can be a weapon system. Our air can be a weapon system. Our water can be a weapon system. Religion and spirituality can be weapon systems when they're infiltrated, and part of what they change are lies that take away our responsibility. So what you're going to find are people saying, well, the reason why our brains double in size is because we started eating cooked food. And yet that's the fall of mankind. It's bad enough that we take the original sin and call it an art. It's the art of cooking. No, it's not. It's the sin of cooking. It's the original sin. It's evil because it's the opposite of living. Spelled backwards. That's what evil is. Cooking is evil. There's no way around it. And we're in denial. As Plato said, whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. We're under the hunger spell. We don't want to admit that we shouldn't indulge in cooked food. We're too addicted to our ways of life. And we've been fed so many lies that never tell us how to get out of the hell we're in. We're told, oh, it's a mistake made long ago. It's part of your nature now. You can't change anything. That's a lie. The dark side of our behavior, the sin nature of man, is a symptom. It's a negative effect just like a headache or any illness, ill behavior, anything negative. It's a sign that's telling us we're not satisfying our needs. And what are we not doing? It's our food. What's the biggest mistake? We're cooking our food. We got to stop cooking our food. And when people come out and say, oh my God, our brains doubled in size because we started eating cooked food, they got it ass backwards. Think about it. In order to cook your food, you had to master fire first. In order to master fire, you had to have a bigger brain. Well, wait a second. You're saying the third thing is causing the first thing? No. The brain. See, piece number one is our brains double in size. Then piece number two, we master something fire. Piece number three, bad application, cooked food. That's the sequence of these 11 main events. So you can't blame the first mistake, the first bad application, for what made our brains grow big, because we had to have the bigger brains. We don't know what made the brains bigger. And the fool that tries to explain this and use this dates back when we know the brains got bigger and said, here's my proof, and yet no one else accepts that. And it isn't proof. And it doesn't fit. It doesn't even make sense. But people want you to believe that. So when you hear bullshit that cooking is what made our brains grow bigger, or eating animals is what made our brains grow bigger, bullshit. We're not biologically adapted to eat animals. We're not supposed to eat cooked food. Eating something we're not supposed to eat is not going to make us better. The only way to make us better is to make our food better. That's what we did a long time ago. We kept making our food better and better and better. You can even give energy to your food and make it better. I remember reading that in the Celestine Prophecy, and I'll never forget, because I went out and tried that out one day when I was walking, and there was a house that had a row of roses, about 100 of them. And I went over there and I gave one rose my energy. And I can do this right now like this. I'm sure a lot of you can do this, and you can feel the energy. It's like a magnet. You can feel the force. Now some are able to do this easier and better than others. I've always been able to have this feeling. But I remember I went to a rose and I gave it my energy, like they talk about in the Celestine Prophecy, how these people were doing with their food to make their food better. And I remember going back down that street about 2 weeks later, and the weather had changed. We had a freeze, and when I went down that street, every rose was dead except for the one rose I gave it my energy. And that was pretty exciting right there. So how did our brains grow bigger? I think it was just a matter of understanding how to plant the best seed in the next generation. And after generation after generation, the food's going to keep getting better and better and better. Did something happen immediately? Who knows? I don't know. It's conjecture. And it doesn't really matter. So we can throw that piece out of the puzzle. It doesn't matter. We got too clever for our own good. We started mastering things, but then we made bad applications. That's what we got. That's how we got in trouble. 5 bad applications, 5 made mistakes are causing most of our problems. Guess what a solid food vacation does? It corrects all 5 of those mistakes on a temporary basis. And when you do that, my friends, you're in for a treat.